What's up, Matt from Fab here. In today's video we're doing some laser welding. I've been wanting to get my hands on one of these for a long time. I've seen all the videos of people laying down these like perfect little welds with them, and yeah, just wanted to see if the hype was real. So this is an Laserlabs X1 Pro, which was sent in by Laserlabs for me to have a go with. It's a 700 watt machine and it does laser welding, laser cleaning, and you can also do laser cutting. We're just going to be doing welding with it today. Most of the videos you see on these, people just run a fillet weld or something down some perfectly clean material, say it's the best thing ever, and you don't really see anyone doing any like real weld sort of stuff with them. So I want to try and do some exhaust work with it, and you know, try to weld some other bits and pieces with it and actually see how it gets on with that kind of thing. If you've not seen them or don't know what it is, it's similar to a traditional welder like a MIG, where you've got a torch that feeds the wire out of the end. The difference with this is, with a MIG welder, it's using an electrical arc to melt the material and also melt the wire, whereas with this it's using a laser beam, which has its advantages, also has its disadvantages, one of them being safety. You can quite easily take someone's eye out with that. You've only got to look at how many warning labels are on the machine and the fact that there's 1, 2, 3 on-off switches, 2 safety cutout switches. This one wires into the back, and then there's even, when you press to weld on here, it makes you confirm that you've got glasses on before it will then allow you to turn it on. It's also got this continuity clamp, so this has to have a circuit confirmed with what you're welding. So when you touch that wire down to whatever's grounded with that clamp, it's not ground, it's just making a circuit, it will then let you weld. Without that connected, it won't. If you clamp that to the torch, which you have to do if you want to use the cleaning or cutting mode, you can then fire laser beams all across the workshop. If you're using one of these commercially, you know, with other people around, you're supposed to have it in a completely locked enclosure where no one else can walk in. So yeah, it's something to consider with this over a traditional welder. You get these laser specific glasses. This is also a laser specific helmet. You're going to want to wear a full face covering. The helmet on its own isn't dark enough for me. This is what they supply with it. The glasses are a bit of a darker shade. If I put the glasses on under this, it's too dark. So I've been using these underneath my welding mask with it set to grind mode. Then I've got my air-fed mask as well, because another thing that apparently is a bit more of an issue with these is because the laser is like vaporizing the material, the fumes are much finer and much worse to ingest. So wearing an air-fed mask is always advisable anyway, but particularly with this. I'm not going to go into like real detail on setting everything up because there's so many videos of these being set up. Similar to a MIG in the fact that it feeds the wire out when you push the button. Difference with this is the wire actually pushes along and pushes the torch along, and that's how you get those perfect, consistent looking welds. So menu wise, these are our 3 main parameters that are on the home screen to adjust. Obviously power of the laser doesn't need explaining. Swing frequency and swing width. So the laser beam is basically doing this constantly. So the swing width is how far do you want it to travel across your weld. Swing frequency is how fast is it going across the weld. The faster it moves, the less time it's spending. I would imagine the less heat is going into it. This is just the width of your weld. You then got wire feed speed, which is how fast it's going to push the torch along. A lot of this stuff, honestly, I'm not sure what it does. The instruction manual for this isn't great, so it's going to be a lot of just trial and error, I think. You've got all these other parameters as well, post-flow, pre-flow for the gas, so similar to like TIG. And then you've got like upslope and downslope you can set there. We just want to keep it simple to start with, so we're going to use the preset parameters which are all up here. I'm guessing that's stainless steel, I'm guessing that's carbon steel, aluminium. Again, nothing in the manual to actually tell you. I've got some stainless steel wire in there at the minute, 1 mil. One thing I don't really get is that you've got the option of 4 different wire sizes, 0.8, 1 mil, 1.2 and 1.6. Yet there's nowhere in this menu to select which wire you've got in there. So I don't understand how these parameters are going to work for each one of those wire sizes. So I'm guessing they're just a rough guide for something to start off, but I could be just missing something in the menu. Stainless steel, we're going to start with some 2 mil, and that's what it recommends. We can tell it whether we want wire on and off, because you can use this without the wire feeder, so it's just, you know, similar to the way that you would use a TIG. If you go to tell it you want to weld, you've got to confirm you're wearing glasses and a respirator before starting the laser. So the way it just pushes the torch along just makes it so easy to get something that consistent. But like I said, I've seen people do this multiple times, so it's not really a surprise. What I want to see is if you can get something like that around a bit of exhaust tube. So let's try that. So this would be where I would normally hold it like that, and then you would tack it. I'd be concerned with this shooting into my finger, because the laser will reflect off of this and bounce off. So tacking is super easy, really tiny little tacks. You know, you got almost the benefits of like tacking with a MIG. You can do it with one hand while you're holding the other bit. Yeah, I'm struggling to see where I'm going, and I've just run off of my line. It's also looking a bit grey, so I'll try turning the gas up a bit. My main issue with this is I can't see where I'm going. So still looking very grey. Parts of that bit is pretty perfect. Other bits have sort of run off line. Very consistent penetration through there. I'll do a shorter bit so we can so you can see the inside a bit better. But that bit there is what we want to try and achieve. So turning the gas up is making no difference whatsoever, and I think it's this little tiny nozzle, whereas with a TIG torch you've got a nice wide envelope of gas with a gas lens. This is just sort of rocketing out of here, and I think it's just bouncing off and not shielding it as well. That's why I think where you've got something to trap it a little bit, there are different nozzles. I could try a bigger nozzle. Yeah, so you don't actually have an option of a bigger nozzle. I was thinking I could swap for that, but that's for like a twin. You get a twin wire one, which obviously has a bigger thing. So I don't really know what to suggest with for the gas flow. I've gone from like 20 CFH up to about 50, and it's made no difference. it's got a lower limit as well. If you go below sort of 20, it actually cuts off and doesn't even feed any gas through the machine, so it obviously needs that as its lower limit. You could try slowing down the wire and see if that helps. So I've set it to pulse now, so you've got essentially the laser's on for a split second, then it's off for a split second. So while it's off, you've got gas still coming out, and that's obviously improving the gas coverage massively, because we've gone from a grey weld to a nice shiny colourful looking weld. So that's working well. The issue is that the wire's sticking really badly. When you look up close at the weld, you can actually see where it's like pulling the wire out of the puddle, and a little bit of the wire is sticking to it. You can feel like a raised ridge on the weld. That's why it's very difficult to whip the torch away. You have got to snatch the torch away, because it's prone to sticking the wire down, I've found, whatever you're doing. I just wanted to have a go at a smaller piece of tube to see how much more difficult it would be. So you're never supposed to hold the gun at 90 degrees to what you're welding, because it will reflect the laser back up the nozzle. And when I'm welding around this tube, this small tube, I do end up doing that if you watch, and that'll damage the lenses in the torch. So bits of that look really good. Again, there's like a raised pointy edge on it, so we got to try and work out a way of getting rid of that. Right, so what I've done now is had a little play around with the pulse settings and just increase the time the laser is on, and also increase the swing width a bit to try and flatten out the weld a little bit, so that you don't get that bit of wire, raised wire sticking up, and in the hope that it'll stop it sticking. And straight away that was a better option. I did notice it had started to grey out again a bit though, so I think at that point I should have increased the time the laser was off as well, and then that would have given the gas a bit more time to flow between each pulse of laser. So I'm currently using 100% pure argon for this, and I have been informed that nitrogen is actually a much better option. I'm also rotating the tube around and trying to keep the torch at the exact same angle. But obviously if you were welding an exhaust system, you're not going to be able to rotate it on the bench like that. So you would have to really move the torch around the pipe a lot more. So in sort of real world that might not be quite as easy as I'm doing it there. But you can see that's a much better result. The weld's sat in there, it's flattened out, and other than it being a bit grey, that is pretty good, I'd say. Very consistent, much more consistent than I can get it with a TIG, and the penetration on the back is absolutely perfect, so can't argue with that. So at this point the laser lost power, and this is how you change the protective cover, and you can see it's got a little, I don't know whether it's like a mark, but where the laser's reflected back up. You're supposed to do this in a like laboratory clean style setup, dust-free environment, wear gloves, don't touch the glass. Obviously if you've got this thing in a welding workshop, realistically are you going to be able to do that? Probably not. So I just did it as carefully as I could, didn't touch the lens at all when I put it in, and with the new lens in there it's back working as it should be. So inside corner like this is the easiest weld to do with one of these. It holds the torch in place and just pushes it round, and you can see because it's trapping the gas in there, you've got a nice shiny looking weld, hasn't greyed out at all with the exact same settings. So I would like to have seen a slightly bigger weld in there if possible, so that's something that I'm trying to work out how to do. So now I wanted to change over and do some mild steel stuff. So this doesn't actually take those little spools, so I had to sort of hack the middle out of that little mini spool and then take take it apart and just sort of bodge it on there. So this is really designed for the bigger reels. And this is some plasma cut pieces, which I've cleaned the edge of some of it, but there's a bit of mill scale on it. I just wanted to see how that would get on with it, and seemed to be getting through it pretty well. And then the laser lost power again. Just previous to this I had welded without turning the gas on, so I think that may be the reason why it's done another one of those protective lenses, so I had to swap that out again. And yeah, I don't know how many of those things you would get through if you were using this day to day, but it's probably a lot about the way I'm using it and just learning how to make sure you're not excessively going through those. You can see there's, in the middle of that, it looks like there's a bit of like porosity. That's where it's sort of, there was a gap behind it and it burnt through. Because of the way this works and the way it pushes the torch along, any kind of gap that wire then sort of falls through into does create a bit of a problem. Here I'm just welding on an actual plasma cut edge. I haven't ground any of that, just to see how it got on. So this is some mild steel, 3mm. I actually welded along like the plasma cut edge. It does have an effect, but it's still come out okay. The difficult thing is you're just laying like tiny little welds, and I'm guessing if you want to increase the size of the weld, the only way to really do that is increase the size of the wire, and that's why you can run, I guess, up to a 1.6mm wire on it, because you can't increase the wire to try and build up the weld, because then it just pushes you along faster. So the setup really is quite different. It's going to take a bit of working out. So we'll try some box section. So it's actually laid a nice weld down in there, but it's you're not able to actually fill the gap up. What I did there was like kind of held the torch and didn't allow it to like push it along, so it was driving more wire into the puddle. I'm not sure if you're really supposed to use them like that. I noticed the fan on the machine kicked in when I was doing it. That way you can allow the weld to sort of build up a bit more. You can see obviously that puts a hell of a lot more heat in as well when you're just sort of stationary trying to drive it in comparison to that, but that's just a tiny little weld. And I want to work out how I can lay like a nice size bead in there with it. Right, so I'm obviously going to continue on playing around with this, but just as like first impression out the box, most of the videos I watch, they'll run something like that on a perfect piece, and then they'll say that, you know, this is the only welder you need and that it's going to replace MIG, TIG and everything, and I don't agree with that at all. It's completely its own thing. There are some applications for sure that this will be a better option than TIG. There may be some applications with MIG where it might be a better option, where you're trying to be precise and lay down very small tidy welds. Things like exhausts, when this is dialed in properly with doing exhausts and all the little issues I was having then have been ironed out, I'll be always welding exhausts up with this over TIGging it because of how quick and easy it is. And if your job involves doing a lot of this stuff, then absolutely this is 100% the way to go. You only got to look at that and how easy that was to do. But if you're doing general, you know, welding, fabrication, fixing gates, I don't know, like your usual stuff you use a MIG welder for, this isn't going to replace it. And it's definitely a little bit harder than it looks, I would say, mainly with the setup of everything and ironing out some of these little issues, I think. I'm not going to do any more until I've got a proper mask, a shade adjustable mask, because that's the thing I'm struggling with, is seeing what I'm doing. Also, I don't like the fact that I've got to remember to put these underneath my other mask, because I'm so in the habit of just wearing one mask. I'm worried I'm going to forget to put these on. I'm going to get one of those. I'm going to get some different thicknesses of wire to play with, and I think I'll probably really focus on stainless exhaust stuff, because I think for me and what I do, this will be the application that this thing's going to get used the most. So yeah, more to come with this. I have got a discount code if you're looking to get yourself one of these. Use code URCHFAB and you'll get yourself a decent discount on one if it's something you are looking into. So not only do I offer welding classes for all abilities here at URCHFAB, I'm now able to offer a range of welding machines at heavily discounted prices. I can pretty much beat anyone in the UK on price on a selection of machines from Jazik, EWM and ESAB. So if you're looking to buy a machine, drop me an email at urchfab.com and I'll get you some prices over. If you do buy a machine through me, you've got my details. You need any tips or help with setup, then I'm here to help you out. If you need welding gas, I can sort that out as well. I'm also now working with Energas, who will be supplying all my gas for the welding classes and everything else that I do. If you come in for a workshop or come in to pick up a machine, I can sort that out in person, or you can use the Energas landing page on my website, and they distribute all across the UK. Great gas supplier and some really cool features of their new gas bottles. I'll be running weekday welding classes again in Axminster starting from June, so booking for those is already open. Again, details on the website, or just drop me an email. That's going to be it for this one. Just watching. See you on the next one.